My name's Mia Bennett. I'm 35. I've never been the favorite, the rebel, or the black sheep. I was the reliable one. The one who showed up early, paid the deposit, remembered the birthdays. I kept the group chats organized and made sure everyone had a ride to the airport. I handled things. When my dad slipped on the stairs and tore a ligament, I paused a vacation, flew back, and stayed 4 nights on his old pull-out couch. My younger brother Ethan said he'd come by if work wasn't crazy. He never did. Mom just smiled and told me I was a lifesaver, then asked if I could pick up her prescriptions before I left. Ethan Bennett is 2 years younger than me and lives like he's allergic to consequences. He's charming, always has been. People say it like a compliment, but when it's your brother and you're the one paying for things he forgets, it wears thin. He dropped out of college after freshman year, moved home, then out, then back in again. Every time he got fired, Dad blamed the boss. Every time he needed help, Mom said he was just finding his way. I kept mine steady. I've worked in logistics since I was 22. I live alone just outside Denver. Clean condo, quiet. I get along with my building manager and know the name of the guy who bags my groceries. That's about it. I'm not flashy. I like structure. I like being dependable. But there's something that happens when you're the dependable one. You don't get seen. Not really. The first time I noticed was during a family photo at my cousin's wedding. They wanted everyone in coordinated tones, nothing too loud. Someone said I wore maroon. It was November. I thought it was tasteful. Later, when they sent out the framed prints, I saw they'd cropped me out. Just needed it to fit the layout, my aunt said with a smile. You understand? I said I did. I always said I did because if I ever said otherwise, I'd get the look, the one that says, you're making this harder than it needs to be. So, I smiled. I drove, I paid, I showed up, even when no one saved me a seat. I never asked for much. I just wanted to be included without needing to be useful. I wanted to belong without having to carry everyone else's weight. But I'd learned in my family being useful was the rent you paid for being kept around. And one day, someone forgot to collect the rent. That's when things began to shift. It started with a phone call. My mother never calls in the middle of the day unless something's gone wrong or she wants something. That Thursday, I let it go to voicemail. She left one. Hi, sweetheart, she said in that high, syrupy voice she uses when she's softening a request. I was just thinking how nice it would be if you came to Ethan and Lauren's engagement dinner next month. It's going to be on a rooftop, very elegant, just family and a few close friends. Then came the real reason for the call. We were wondering if you could help with the reservation, just to hold it with your card. We'll pay you back. Of course. I listened to the message twice. Then I called the restaurant, booked a private section for 24 guests, left a $500 deposit. The woman on the phone asked if I wanted to make any special requests. I told her to add floral centerpieces and check if the lighting would be good for photos. I wasn't angry, not then. Ethan was getting engaged. Lauren was fine. We'd only met once at a birthday lunch, and she barely made eye contact between Instagram stories. But my mother called her an angel and a much-needed balance for Ethan. I knew what that meant. She came from money. Her father ran some sort of mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago, the kind of family who sends holiday cards printed on matte stock with gold embossing. A few days after the reservation, I got a text from Mom. Everything's confirmed. Thank you again, sweetie. You're a gem. No mention of paying me back. Still, I bought a new blazer, pressed slacks. I picked out a bottle of vintage Pinot Noir and had a custom card made with their initials embossed in silver. I even ordered my hair blown out that afternoon, something I hadn't done in over a year. Because some part of me, some foolish, dented part, still hoped that maybe this time would be different. Maybe I'd have a seat that wasn't borrowed. Maybe I'd be seen not for what I provided, but for who I was. Maybe I'd be led into the photo, not left out of the frame. The night of the dinner, I arrived 10 minutes early. It was late October and the sun was just beginning to dip below the skyline. The rooftop was strung with soft Edison bulbs, warm and golden, swaying in the evening breeze. A small jazz trio played in the corner, all muted trumpet and brushed cymbals. Someone had gone all out. I wore a tailored navy blazer, black slacks, low heels. My hair was still holding its shape from the blowout, and I had the bottle of wine in one hand, the card in the other. The hostess greeted me by name and motioned me toward the private section. "Your party's already seated," she smiled. I walked in, careful not to scuff the floor with my shoes. Every table had fresh flowers. There were candles, polished flatware, cloth napkins folded into sharp triangles. And there they were, my parents, Ethan, Lauren, her family, a few of their friends. Everyone had a drink in hand. Laughter floated through the space, effortless and well-practiced. Ethan turned when he saw me. He didn't move, didn't smile, just raised a hand lazily and said, "Hey, Mia, you made it." He glanced at the wine in my hand, then passed me like I was someone who'd wandered in from the bar. Then he nodded toward the side. "So, yeah, that table's just for family and all, but we've got you a spot over there." I followed his finger, a folding chair against the wall next to a plastic trash bin lined with a black bag. The table beside it was smaller, round, clearly meant for overflow. One seat, no place setting. My mother gave me that tight-lipped smile, the one that says, "Please don't make this complicated." Dad raised his glass in a vague, uncomfortable toast. Lauren didn't look up from her phone. I stood there for a beat too long, the wine sweating in my hand. Then I nodded, walked to the chair, sat down, placed the bottle on the ground beside me. I didn't take my coat off. The waiter came by, asked if I was with the main party. I said yes. He brought me a glass of water. That was all. For the next 90 minutes, I watched as they toasted, passed plates, opened small gifts. Ethan gave a speech about finding the one and being surrounded by the people who matter most. I watched my mother wipe away tears when Lauren called her the best future mother-in-law a girl could ask for. No one looked my way. No one asked if I'd eaten. I stared at the napkins on their table, folded deliberate, perfect. At my table, there was none. Dessert had just been served, some elaborate layered thing with edible gold flakes and hand-whipped cream. Someone snapped a photo of it before the first slice was cut. The jazz trio shifted into a slow standard. The sun was gone now, replaced by city lights and the cold gleam of steel across the skyline. I hadn't spoken since I sat down. No one had come over. My coat was still buttoned. That's when the waiter returned. He was holding a small leather folder. He stopped beside their table and glanced down at the check, then over at me. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said quietly. "The total comes to $3,218. Should I run the same card we have on file?" Heads turned. Ethan looked up from his slice of cake. "Oh, yeah," he said, nodding casually. "Mia's got it." The waiter looked back at me. I took a slow breath, then smiled. Not wide, not cold, just settled. "Actually," I said, keeping my voice low but clear, "that's not my table." There was a pause, the kind that sucks the air from a room. "I was told it was for family only," I added. "I'm over here." My mother froze, wine glass mid-air. Lauren looked up for the first time all night. Her father furrowed his brow. Ethan's jaw tightened. The waiter hesitated, confused. "But you made the reservation, ma'am." "I did." I nodded. "I booked it, paid the deposit, requested the flowers, but I didn't eat. I wasn't welcomed. I'm not on that table's tab." No one spoke. You could hear the flick of a lighter as someone tried to relight a candle. I stood, picked up my coat, took one last glance at the folding chair, still angled slightly toward the trash bin. Apparently, that's where I belong. And I walked. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. The waiter was still holding the bill when I passed him. From behind me, I heard Ethan's voice, half a laugh, half a snap. "Come on, Mia. It was a joke. You're seriously doing this?" I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I didn't go home right away. I walked for a while down 2 blocks, past a bakery that was closing for the night, past a row of parked cars with fog on the windows. I still had the bottle of wine in my hand, still unopened. When I got back to my condo, I left the coat on, stood in the kitchen for a few minutes, letting the quiet settle. The first message came 30 minutes later. Ethan, of course. "You couldn't just pay and talk to me after?" Then came one from my mother. "You embarrassed us in front of Lauren's whole family. Was that your goal?" Neither one asked if I'd gotten home safe. I silenced my phone, but later it lit up again. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but they called a second time, then a third. Finally, I answered. "Hi, this is Lauren." Her voice was softer than I remembered. No social media polish, no performative sweetness. "I know we haven't really talked," she said, "but can I ask you something?" I waited. "Did you really pay for everything? The deposit, the flowers, that view?" I leaned back against the counter. "Yeah, I did." She was quiet for a moment. "They told my dad Ethan planned it. Said it was all his idea, that he paid for everything, that you insisted on sitting apart because you were introverted." That last part made me exhale through my nose. "I didn't insist on anything," I said. "They asked. I said yes. I didn't expect anything back, but I didn't volunteer as a prop." Another pause. Then she spoke again. "My dad's furious. He said he wouldn't have agreed to the restaurant if he'd known someone they shoved in a corner was footing the bill." I didn't say anything. "I'm not trying to take sides," she added. "I just thought you should know." We ended the call not long after that. No tension, no thanks. Just a quiet hang-up, like neither of us quite knew what to do with what was left. The silence after felt heavier than anything anyone had said, but for once, I wasn't the one carrying it. By morning, the family group chat was on fire. It had been quiet for days before the dinner. Usually, it only flared up around holidays or when someone posted a blurry photo of a birthday cake. But now, it was pinging non-stop. "Mom, Mia, we need to talk. Call me when you have a minute." "Ethan, you seriously messed this up with Lauren's family. You owe us a fix." "Dad, this is getting out of hand. Just apologize and let's move on." I didn't respond. I read them once, archived the thread, and made coffee. It wasn't just about the folding chair. It wasn't about the wine or the lack of a place setting. It was the slow accumulation of roles I never signed up for. The designated driver, the emergency contact, the backup wallet. And now that I'd finally stepped back, they didn't know what to do with the space I used to fill. By midweek, things had escalated further. A friend of Ethan's, Jake, someone I barely knew but who always nodded politely at family events, sent me a message out of the blue. Lauren's dad had a meltdown Sunday. Like, actual meltdown. According to Jake, Mr. Sullivan had found out everything. The real cost of the dinner, the lies, the folding chair, the bill left hanging when I walked. He was furious, not just at Ethan, but at the entire performance. "If this is how they treat their own blood," he reportedly said, "what happens when you marry into it?" The next day, Lauren moved out of Ethan's condo and back to her apartment. The Pinterest boards disappeared. The venue request was canceled. Their shared calendar, flights, dress fittings, tastings, went blank. Ethan tried to call me 3 times. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail on the 4th. "Just fix it. Please talk to Lauren's dad. Explain it was a misunderstanding. You're making this bigger than it is." But it was never a misunderstanding. It was a pattern, and patterns don't break until someone stops dancing. I spent that evening organizing my kitchen drawers, moved the wine to a lower shelf, canceled a card Ethan had once borrowed for emergencies and never returned. It felt small, but it was a start. That night, I logged into the bank account Ethan and I had once shared, back when he was unemployed and needed somewhere to route his last freelance checks. I had left a few thousand in there, money I'd nearly forgotten. He hadn't. The Spotify subscription was still active. So was his gym membership, 2 food delivery apps, all quietly charged to an account he no longer contributed to. I transferred the balance to my personal savings. Then I called the bank, closed the account completely. It felt clean. The next morning, Ethan called 4 times before noon. On the 5th, I picked up. "What the hell, Mia?" His voice was sharp, panicked. "My card's not working. It says the account's gone." I said nothing. "I had dinner plans with Lauren tonight. I was going to take her to that Italian place she likes. Now I can't even get an Uber." I let a breath settle before I spoke. "I closed the account." "You what? You can't?" "I can," I said flat. And I did. There was a pause, then a shift in his tone. That wheedling, slippery register he always used when charm didn't work. "Come on, Mia. Don't do this. You're jealous. Admit it. You've always hated that I got the attention." That made me laugh. Not bitter, just tired. "Ethan, You really think Lauren's dad is still on your side? Silence. Don't worry, I said. You'll figure it out. You always do. Maybe Mom can open another card for you, or Dad can talk to her again. That seems to work. Mia, stop. I hung up. That was the last time he called. A few hours later, I got an email. The subject line read, "I think we need to talk." It was from Lauren. I opened the email later that evening. The subject line, "I think we need to talk," sounded heavier than it should have. I made tea first, sat by the window, then clicked. It was longer than I expected, polite, but unraveling at the edges. She started by saying she hadn't realized how things looked, not until everything fell apart. Not until her father started asking questions neither she nor Ethan could answer. "I was so focused on making it perfect," she wrote, "that I didn't stop to ask who was holding it all together." She admitted she'd believed Ethan when he told her I'd insisted on paying, that I didn't like crowds, that I preferred to be separate. Then she called the restaurant herself, spoke to the manager, got the itemized receipt. The story cracked. "I ended the engagement last night," she wrote. "Not because of one night, because of everything it showed me." She described Ethan's patterns, how he downplayed her concerns, how he joked when she cried, how he called everyone too sensitive when things got serious. "You were the only one who stayed calm," she added, "and you were the only one no one looked at." The line sat there for a while before I kept reading. She didn't ask for a response. She wasn't looking to commiserate. She just said, "I see it now, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I read it twice, then archived the message. I didn't need more than that. Sometimes the apology isn't for healing. It's just a small weight finally moved off your chest. The next day, the group chat went quiet again, and for once, I didn't wonder if they'd reach out. I wasn't waiting for it. She came on a Sunday. I heard the knock just after noon. When I opened the door, my mother stood there in a long cardigan, holding a glass dish of lasagna. Her eyes looked tired. She didn't wear makeup, just a hint of lipstick, faded at the edges. "I brought you dinner," she said. I didn't take it, just opened the door a little wider. She stepped inside quietly. She sat at the kitchen table. Not the couch, not the stool by the counter. The actual chair across from mine, the one I usually kept empty. Same fingers, same restless tapping. But this time, no rehearsed lines. No, "he didn't mean it." No, "you're just tired." She looked down, then up. "I owe you an apology," she said. I crossed my arms, waited. "Just one?" I said. Her lips pressed together, then loosened. "Probably more than one." She took a breath, slower than I'd ever seen her. "We didn't see it, not because it wasn't there, but because we didn't want to." She stared at her own hands like they might explain something she couldn't say. "You never asked for anything. That made it easier to forget you were always giving." I didn't speak. "It wasn't right. I know that now." We didn't talk long. She left the lasagna and I walked her to the door. At the threshold, she looked back once. "Take care of yourself." Then she left and the chair stayed where it was. Finally, someone had sat in it. A few weeks later, I booked a flight to Italy. It was a trip I'd postponed twice, once for Dad's surgery, once because Ethan couldn't watch the house while I was gone. This time, no one asked. I didn't offer. Florence was cool in the evenings, warm in the day. I walked through quiet alleys, drank coffee that tasted like time, and bought a small wooden chair from a craftsman who carved initials into the frame if you asked. I didn't ask. I liked it plain. When I got home, I placed the chair on my balcony, facing east, quiet, solid, just wide enough for me to sit and read or not read at all. Ethan hasn't called since. From what I hear, he's back at Mom and Dad's, working odd hours at a startup he doesn't talk about. The wedding's officially canceled. Lauren returned the ring. My parents message me sometimes, separately now. Short notes, no requests, just space. They invited me to Thanksgiving. "Only if you feel up to it," Mom wrote. I haven't answered. I bought a set of noise-canceling headphones, started reading again. Real books, not guides on fixing people. I even found a therapist, not because I was broken, because I'd finally stopped waiting to be seen. I didn't pay their bill that night, but I collected on years of silent debt, and I'm not sitting beside the trash anymore. I'm at my own table and I chose the chair. I learned that being dependable doesn't mean being invisible. For years, I carried my family's weight, thinking it earned me a place at their table. But love shouldn't be a transaction, and belonging shouldn't demand a receipt. That night, sitting by the trash bin, I saw the truth. I'd been paying for a seat they never intended to give me. Walking away wasn't just about the bill, it was about reclaiming my worth. I realized I'd been waiting for them to see me when I needed to see myself first. Closing the account, booking that trip to Italy, choosing my own chair, those were steps toward a life where I set the terms. I learned that patterns only break when you stop playing your part. Now, I choose who sits at my table, and I don't need to prove my value to belong. The quiet after wasn't empty. It was mine. Sometimes the hardest lesson is that you can't fix what others refuse to see, but you can build a life where you're enough, just as you are.